Okay, here we go. So, about Islandora 8, we're going to give you a kind of overview of just the history of the project and what you can do with it now and where we're headed. So, hi, that's me. I am the tech lead for the Islandora Foundation. If you see a man on GitHub who is posting with the name Danny Lamb but is holding a potato, that is also me. So, in general, let's just start off with the basics here. What is Islandora? My captions seem to have crashed. Let's try that again. So, what is Islandora? Islandora is, at first glance, you would probably think it is simply Drupal plus Fedora. However, it is actually quite more than that. We integrate with a lot of things. Oh boy, captions gremlins going on here, folks. I'm sorry about this. Let's just try this again. So there are a lot of other technologies involved. You can see here, this is just a small smattering of all of the different stuff that we integrate with. And so there's a lot of Drupal modules for a lot of these things, but there's also, you know, a lot of stuff we have to write ourselves. And so when we integrate with these technologies, we do it as microservices. So what you could say, a way you could describe Islandora is that it is microservices for Drupal. So a microservice is a small single purpose, like one function web app. It does one thing and it does one thing really well. And we do that because we can split them apart, put them on different servers, and essentially just sandbox things. This small single-purpose web app doesn't need to know anything about anything else of the entire repository ecosystem. And so the other benefit here is that because we can split it off onto different machines, what we're essentially doing is we're farming out the work. So we're using the microservices to farm the work out to a back end that's running. And it's all the stuff that you want your repository to do. It just all happens in the background and it doesn't clog up your actual repository's website. So your users still get a decent experience even while you've just uploaded 100 gigs of raw video and now you're processing all of that stuff. So if you take this microservices approach kind of all the way to the end of the thread, essentially, if you just pull on that thread all the way, where you wind up is Docker. And so we just very recently wrapped up a project to Dockerize Islandora 8. You've probably heard of it. It's called ISLE. And we'll talk about it more later. I've got another presentation on it. But in the end, in order to manage all of those microservices, it turns out to be a lot easier to do everything with Docker containers. So another way to think about Islandora is that it's really this kind of shared environment that we have here that is all of these containers. Also, we do manage a playbook because this is all very new, but essentially think of it that way. It is an entire thing. It's not just a Drupal module. It's not just these integrations with these other softwares. It's not just these microservices. It's this whole kit and caboodle. It's more than just even this environment, right? So the full way I would describe Islandora to you, excuse me, I forgot, oh my, I forgot our very best analogy here. If Islandora were a food item, it would be a bento box. So because it's all very microservice driven and can be split out any way you want and you can pick and choose what you like, we have a very nice food analogy for it, and essentially Islandora 8 is a bento box of sushi, a nice clean separated lunch. So in the end, the best way to describe Islandora is that Islandora is a digital repository framework. It is a framework for you to build your digital repository based on best practices. And this framework is supported by an ever-growing online community. This community is some 300 odd installations. We don't have the exact numbers. We don't know exactly how big we are because the best we can do is just ask you to tell us And sort of every day we're finding, you know, new Islandora sites. So at our best guess, around 300 installations. This is every continent on the globe except for Antarctica, but I'm still holding out for that. I bet you somewhere there's going to be a research station running Islandora on Antarctica one day. So bullet list kind of big pitch. Why would you use Islandora? Why would you use this digital repository framework? So number one, Drupal. Drupal does a lot. You get a lot from Drupal for free. We'll talk more about everything that you get from Drupal, but it's a ton. It's not just a digital repository, but Drupal really gives you that website for your digital repository for free. It's also a huge open source project with a lot of support. So there are, you know, avenues for you if you need help or if you need to get on Slack and chat with someone. It's just, it's available, it's there. It does a lot. Why else? You can customize it. You can customize Islandora with any Drupal contrib module, with any theme. We have a lot of viewers to show all of your stuff. It's very easy to customize through a user interface without any programming. Support, we have, I mentioned the Drupal community, but we have a very active and vibrant community. And we do a lot to help each other out. And so that's really a huge part of Islandora, is that we are all sort of collectively helping each other out as we navigate, you know, putting up a digital repository together. Because there's a lot of us, that also means that there's a lot of vendors available to help you out with that work too. So if you really do need paid support and cannot rely on just the community support, there are people there that are willing to help you with Islandora for a little change. Excuse me, I am dealing with these captions again. All right. So Islandora is very extendable. We do integrate with other systems. Islandora 8 just recently integrated with Archive Space due to one of our committers, Seth Shaw. And there's another Islandora 8 pilot project that went up that integrated with OJS. So they use the whole OJS workflow. And then in the end, everything is published to the repository in Islandora. You can store anything. We work with just about anything. We have lots of viewers, and we can transform content, and we can manipulate stuff, extract text. We can do all kinds of stuff with most types of files. And even if we have no idea what it is, it's some esoteric file, some, you know, random 3D viewer that has no like HTML, you know, client to look at it, something like that. We can deal with it. We just take it in as a binary and it sits there as a file, and you can download it at any time. And so lastly, why Islandora? We are open source. We are completely free to use, developed in the open. There is no free tier even. It's not even anything like that. It's just 100% straight up free. Always is, always will be. You kind of hear the words free as in beer, free as in speech. Well, we're both of those. We are free as in beer and free as in speech when we use to describe open source, but we are also, and I think this is the best analogy, we are free as in free kitten, not free sandwich. So all of this comes for free. You get it all. You don't have to pay anything, right? But if someone gives you a free sandwich, you can eat that sandwich, and then your obligation is over. You don't have to do anything. However, if someone gives you a free kitten, the kitten itself was free, but you still have to take care of that kitten. It needs love. It needs food, you know? And in the same way, like this software, it needs people to file bugs, to notice that some documentation is wrong and fix a typo, you know, stuff like that, all the way down to people that are actually like developing the features for you. So again, it's all free, but what we're asking for from everyone really is just your engagement. If you're engaged and you work with this software, then we all collectively grow it and make it better. All right, so the history of Islandora. A wonderful cat photo, if you haven't noticed the theme here. So we do a lot of food stuff. We also do a lot of cat and dog photos and memes. So this is one of my favorites, though, I have to say. So the history of Islandora. So it was developed in UPI in 2006. one of the first slides I had there had a man thinking about something with Drupal plus Fedora. That man is actually Mark Leggett, lovingly referred to as the Beard in some circles here in Islandora. So his idea was, okay, I like Fedora and I want to use Fedora for my digital repository, but it's kind of rough around the edges. It doesn't do everything we need. And specifically, if I have access to it, it's like all or nothing. Either I'm in and I can do everything, or I can't see anything, and that's it. So the idea was to put Drupal as a front end to Fedora. And there was even, at a time, kind of this thought of, well, what if we had all of these different multiple front ends to Fedora, like WordPress or Joomla and stuff like that. But none of that actually came to be. We started out with Drupal, and we're still on Drupal, and quite frankly, I think it's the best choice. We ended up well here. But that was it. That was the idea. We're going to combine Drupal plus Fedora. And there was a grant that was gotten, the AIF grant, and that grant, that money basically infused everyone who was working on it at UPEI and really helped further and develop the software that's around the Islandora 6 days. So we started out Drupal 5 with Mark Leggett in 2006, then Drupal 6, and then we moved to Drupal 7, and somewhere around that time, the Islandora Foundation was founded. Basically at the end of the grant, when that grant ran out, one of the stipulations was that a charitable organization had to be created. And so here we are. This is my employer and Melissa's. So the Islandora Foundation is a community-driven soliciting nonprofit incorporated in Canada with a mission to steward the Islandora software platform and the community that develops and supports it. That's you guys. So that's what we do. There's only 2 of us. We're kind of a skeleton crew. But we basically help everyone collaboratively use and build and improve this software. That's what we're here for. So we are member driven, we said. That means that people donate money to us. Here is a slide full of all of the lovely organizations that do support the Islandora Foundation. We do have a structure, so there is some organization to the whole deal. It's not completely freeform. So at the top, we have a board of directors. The board basically deals with legal matters and, with opening the purse strings and stuff like that. But that's what the board does. The coordinating committee, you may have heard, this is a group that you can get on with a certain level of membership. And the coordinating committee orchestrates all of the social stuff, these events, the code of conduct, things like that. The technical advisory group, fighting these captions again, the technical advisory group sort of is like the technical version of the coordinating committee, but they handle things when, people are like, I need to support an ancient version of PHP. What do you think about maintaining that support for a long time? When questions like that come up, or if ever I as tech lead make a decision that might be a little controversial or something like that, then what this is a kind of cross section of the entire community. We've got people from vendors and people from large organizations and people from small organizations. And so it's like a buffer for me to deliberate on these things, or just to deal with the really tough, questions of how long do we support things and kind of the technical direction of the software and stuff like that. The actual software itself, it gets made by committers. Well, it gets made by contributors and everyone else. There's, anyone can issue a bug fix. Anyone can throw up some documentation and stuff like that. But the people that merge that code in, that basically kind of have the control of the gates on the code base, those are the committers. Committers are elected basically by their peers. So we have a small pool. That pool of people is growing. If someone shows up and is like, wow, doing a really good job, and we really see someone is great and we essentially trust to work with that person, then we can nominate that person, and then you can become a committer if you so choose. And then in the bottom right corner here, we have the staff, and that's just Melissa and I. That's just us working at our desks. So Islandora right now, what are we like right now? So we've been through a lot. We've gone through Drupal 5, Drupal 6, Drupal 7. We're now on Drupal 8. What does Drupal 8 let you do? Okay, so right now I mentioned it gives you that website to your repository, but you know, I can just say that gives you a website. But there's a lot to that. So it lets you model your content. That's really a lot of what Drupal is here. Think of it as your content modeler. And because of that, you can build forms. So you can set up all of your different forms that you want and assign them to, you know, various roles or people. You can construct queries. We call that's a view. So you can build views, which are ways to, you know, essentially let you query a database using a user interface. And then you can say what you want to do with the results. So you can say, give me all the things of type X, and then, you know, add up how big they are, or something like that. Anything you can do SQL with, you can do it with a view, except through a UI. So you don't have to deal with the command prompt and stuff like that. You can control how your site looks. You can give it a theme. You can change the theme. You can change colors on some themes even. And everything down to how you want search results to look. How do you want an individual page of an item in your repository? How do you want that to look? You can edit your site configuration. You control everything through the UI, and you can even lock down the access control to your content. So like those are the core Drupal features, and that's a lot. That's a ton, but it keeps going. So you can also build out workflows in Drupal. So essentially, as content is created, you give it states at a basic level that's published and unpublished, but you can elaborate on those and make as many as you want. You can transition between states. So say someone is creating it, then they mark it, you know, ready for review, and then someone reviews it and says, okay, published, right? So you can transition between all of these states. And then when you do that, you can trigger actions when these state changes happen. So you can essentially build out your workflow for how the people in your organization are going to deal with creating and publishing content. And then Drupal just really helps you do that. It also has a lot of nice tools for working with revisions of content. So you can tell it when to create a revision and stuff like that, all built out and based on these workflows. I said before, you can use any Drupal module or theme. Historically, this hasn't always been true. You know, Islandora 5, 6, 7, we were very special and customized, and kind of the way that we integrated with Fedora at the time prevented us from doing this. Now with Islandora 8, with the way we've integrated with Fedora, kind of leaving it as the preservation layer and allowing us to use the relational database that Drupal comes with instead of trying to kind of slice that out and slide Fedora in. Because of that, we can use anything. So just like the world's your oyster here when it comes to all the stuff you can find on Drupal.org, all of this works with Islandora. All of your Islandora content is nodes and media and taxonomy terms. So anything that works with those works with Islandora. So you name it. And we ship with a ton of stuff. We use a lot of third-party modules. We use a third-party module to check the file hashes, to let you switch between viewers or switch, you know, themes or whatever. We use one called Context. We use it for a Drupal module for authentication. We use JWT tokens that we pass around everywhere. So every time you do something, we know who did it and like what their name was, what their role was, and stuff like that. Like there's just so much that we leverage, and there's even more that you can leverage because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily belong in core, but is still super duper useful. You can control your search and discovery. We integrate by Solr with default. You can integrate with other solutions such as like Elasticsearch, there's modules for, but for the most part, what we do is Solr. Boy, these captions are really giving me grief. All right. So you can set up what goes into your index, what displays in the results, what your facets look like, how you facet, how many hits you have to have before it becomes a facet, etc. All of this, it's all done through a user interface. And we get all of this just because, you know, all of our content is Drupal content. Because of that, we just leverage the third-party modules. Bang, we just pull the Solr module off the shelf. Here you go. We get a full user interface for setting up how all of your site content gets indexed and is searchable. We also have flexible storage. This is another awesome module that we take advantage of. It's called Fly System. That's what that, the blue F there in the square is. And what this does is this means basically, as long as you can afford it, you're never going to run out of space. You can always buy another disk, put another disk on, mount it over the network even if you have to, and you can just continue to expand out your storage that way. You can also use all kinds of other things, like say if you've got content on an FTP server, you can make it available, you know, that way. But then there's also lots of modules out there. There's a whole ecosystem for Fly System that will let you integrate with all kinds of cloud vendors too. So, you know, you can stick your stuff in Amazon S3 buckets. You can use DigitalOcean Spaces, stuff like that. You know, pretty much all the major vendors have some sort of integration so that you can use their cloud storage. So you can vastly expand Drupal's public and private kind of file system paradigm with all of this stuff in Fly System. And the best part is that Drupal then becomes like the front end to all of your content. All of the content, no matter where it's stored, if it's in some Amazon S3 bucket or it's on the private or public file system on Drupal or it's on some CDN somewhere, it doesn't matter. All of the URLs that you get for all that content are your Drupal URLs, and so you just access everything that way. When people are uploading, then there's no different experience based on, you know, which vendor's bucket this stuff is going to. All of the credentials and signing in and everything is all handled kind of, you know, in the background in the Drupal admin. And so your end users, they're just uploading files and they know that they go where they need to go, and that's it. I mentioned before, we work with any type of content. That means that we not only hold pretty much any type of content you can imagine, any single thing, right? An image, an audio file, a video file, a PDF, right? We can work with all of this stuff. We can even combine sequences of these things together. So we have page content, so we can do newspapers and books and stuff like that too. We also have the tools to transform and manipulate all of this content when it comes in to do things for you. So you can make, you know, lower resolution copies of things and stuff like that to stream out so that people aren't accessing all of your high quality original content. So what are some of the things you can do? So you can right now manipulate images. We have a microservice for image magic. So you can convert formats, resize, rotate, watermark, change the color, you know, palette or whatever, do the negative effects, all that stuff. We also use it to extract images from PDFs. So you can get a thumbnail for your PDF and stuff like that. We also can process audio and video. So you can convert audio and video into just about any format imaginable, you know, resize, make it a lower quality size, stuff like that. We also use it to extract frames of a single frame, excuse me, from the video. And so we use that for thumbnails. You can also extract text. We can extract text from images of, say, a scanned image of a page of a book. We pass that through Tesseract OCR. We can also extract text from a PDF. So if you have a text-based PDF, not an image-based one, but if you have a text-based PDF, then we run it through Popular Utils, PDF to text. We just extract that out. And then your extracted text gets put back into Drupal, and it is indexable and it is searchable. We also extract technical metadata, so we pass everything through FITS. So everything that gets put into the digital repository, if you want, you can run FITS on it and you can pull out all of the technical metadata for it. And on top of that, you get the full FITS XML file, which you can store essentially as a data stream still. We run usage statistics. So when you start a new Islandora site, unless you very explicitly install it without Matomo, you're going to get it by default. And so you can always track who is viewing and who is downloading your content. It embeds a little tracker in the HTML that basically phones to your statistics server and says every time someone clicks on something. It's all kind of done through the browser. You can also use Google Analytics, that's fine, but we found that the way it works, that Matomo with the way it tracks with the JavaScript just works out better. So we've kind of sort of just standardized on that, if you will. We have an OAL-PMH endpoint. So if you want to get harvested, have your stuff end up in DPLA. you can do that. It is a view. I mentioned views before. So you essentially say through a UI, here's how I want to find the things to expose. Like, give me all of the things that are tagged this way, or all the things in a specific collection, or everything but my collections, right? Like all of their children, but not the collections themselves. However you want to frame it, you can slice and dice your content and have it exposed over the OAL-PMH endpoint. And then you can say what metadata profile you want to put in there. So by default, we work with DC, but you can actually provide a custom template and have it template out mods or put whatever you want in there. We also are compatible with IIIF, and we do leverage a lot of IIIF capabilities here. So we run a IIIF image server, Cantaloupe, and from that image server, you can serve JPEGs and TIFFs and JP2s, and you can view it using the OpenSeaDragon viewer. So we have a special field formatter for that in Drupal. Any image or file that gets uploaded, that basically anything that will be served over Cantaloupe can be viewed with a nice deep zoom viewer. We also have some special capabilities that we added to it to work with IIIF manifests. So your Drupal site, your Islandora, will generate manifests for your content, particularly that paged content or sequential content. And so we can actually read those manifests, break them down, figure out that you're trying to show multiple images, and present all of them in the OpenSeaDragon viewer. And then you have your options in how you want to present those. So you get a nice little film strip at the bottom, kind of showing you everything sort of as an index. You can do them in a line, in a grid, one at a time, however you want. But we both generate and can read IIIF manifests. So it's a lot. There's a lot that you can do right now. There's a ton. It is very customizable. It is very flexible. If you download, run it, and install it now, you will get something that essentially is our default. But once you take it, you can just go crazy with it and kind of do whatever you want. So just there's a ton that you can do. But we don't do everything yet. I mean, certainly the software is not done. And never will be. We will always be continuously improving it. So sort of, where are we headed then, right? So we did past, present. Now we're gonna do the future. So we do have a version support timeline that is built off of Drupal's version support timeline. Drupal threw us a curveball recently. They extended the end of life for Drupal 7. That is basically to give people more time to transition to 8 because of the pandemic and everything else. But essentially our deal with Islandora 7 still remains roughly unchanged. So we're gonna do another release this year. It's the last release. No features will be added. Then we will do bug fixes for essentially another 2 years. And then in April 2022, we promise to extend some security releases after their original end of life for Drupal 7. We're still holding true to that. So there is the, excuse me, boy, children. So there is the security end of life for Drupal 7. We were going to extend another 6 months beyond that, but we promised to give you some security bug fixes for our Islandora stuff only. So Drupal 8 actually goes end of life before Drupal 7, which is weird, I guess, is the best way to put it. But really, it makes sense. Drupal 8 relies on a bunch of other components, and those components go end of life. And so that's really what's like triggering these end of life moves from the Drupal community. So it goes end of life 2021, but don't worry, because kind of it's no big deal going from 8 to 9. And so Islandora 8 will just become Islandora 9. And you're really not gonna see any big difference. It's not gonna change too much. Now, when will Islandora 9 happen? Drupal 9 was just released. Islandora 9 release depends. And I'll kind of talk about that here. So going from 8 to 9, okay, involves some things in terms of code. We have to, you know, not use some deprecated functions, maybe change some plugins, maybe some functions have slightly changed names, you know. There's that sort of stuff, which isn't that huge of a deal. We've audited it to some extent to see what the scope of work is, but we do rely on a lot of other modules. The core of Islandora relies on these other modules. And so if they aren't Drupal 9 ready, then we can't really be Drupal 9 ready. So essentially we're in a holding pattern here. So we've got some work to do. We can do that work. It doesn't make us Drupal 8 incompatible. But until all of the contrib modules that we use are ready for Drupal 9, then we can't really be Islandora, you know, 9 yet. The other question that you're probably thinking at this point is, well, what about Fedora? So Fedora 6 is coming soon. And so, you know, I'll say this, we went from Fedora 4 to Fedora 5 already with the Islandora 8 stack. Wasn't really that big of a deal. Didn't really change anything. If you're a greenfield installation and you come in when Fedora 6 is ready, then we'll be using it and you'll get Fedora 6. And that's just what you'll start with. If it's not what you start with, if you start earlier, say you're on Fedora 5, then the Fedora community is providing migration tools to get your content from 4 to 5 to 6. And because of the way we interact with it over the API, nothing's going to change. If the API doesn't change, then we don't actually have to change anything we do. The way we interact with Fedora is very straightforward. So unless they really change a lot of like super core stuff, like, you know, how you look at a file or how you update a file, as long as those things kind of stay the same, then we're fine. So for the most part, if you're on 7, there's all the extra bags you have to pack in order to get to 8. But once you're here, or if you skip that and you go straight to 9, whenever it eventually lands, once you're in, then you're in and the process is going to be pretty smooth. Drupal has committed to making things smoother, and they're really following through on that, that's for sure. You know, Fedora 6, the Fedora community has committed to making things smoother, and they are following through on that, and they have migration tooling. So for the most part, once you're in, you can comfortably stay in, and updating and changing, you know, you see these numbers change, 5 to 6 or 7 to 8, 8 to 9, and it seems kind of scary, but those numbers are mostly cosmetic now. Once you get in, it doesn't mean quite what it meant before. So going from 5 to 6, no big deal with Fedora. Going from Drupal 8 to 9, kind of no big deal. And so we've got the number attached, you know, essentially to the name of the software, but you can kind of think of it as, you know, Islandora 8, 9, 10, whatever, plus going on, as essentially all being kind of all of the same system. And that number is just changing based on when some other things change behind the scenes. Okay, so that was a lot. I'm supposed to go until 10:50. It's 10:43 now, so I guess I've got some time to handle a lot of questions, anything I brought up in the roadmap or maybe some features you're curious about. So you can just go ahead, I guess, ask me now. I'm going to try to get to the chat so I can see stuff without breaking presentation view here.
I'll read out questions as they come into the chat, Danny. We actually have one here. Will Islandora 9 be integrated with Fedora 6?
So we will integrate with Fedora 6 whenever Fedora 6 is ready. If that happens while we're still on 8, then it's going to happen then. If 9 happens and we make that transition, excuse me, before 9 lands, then it will be, you know, sometime shortly after Islandora 9 is released, then we would integrate with Fedora 6. We're not going to bump that number based on the Fedora change. We're essentially just tracking the Drupal version. But the quick answer is, as soon as it's available, we're going to be using it. And we're going to take part in the process to help the Fedora community when they're ready to test it. You know, we'll be there testing it and integrating it in with the system and everything.
Next question, clarification of future Islandora releases. There'll be tags of the current 7x branches, right? So if new features have been accepted since the previous release, they'll be in the new release, right?
So we're not including new features for Islandora 7 in these releases. If something gets into the development though, right? Like I'm saying that if someone merges in a new feature and then we tag and slice a release, yes, it's available. It's there. We don't plan on it though.
Well, there'll be one more feature release at the end of this year.
Yes, excuse me, I'm sorry, context. I thought we were talking about after that. So there's one release here at the end of the year with features.
And the follow-up comment is, so we're freezing the 7X branches at that point.
Yes. Yes, that's a good way to think about it. And then it's bug fixes only, or security fixes.